My father was keep telling me, Lahore mein maine dafan hona hai, Lahore mujhe leke jaana hai. And I'm like, this is a big deal. I was thinking, why is this a problem for him? Why is not dying a problem for him? Why is being buried in America a problem for him? It was 9/11 going on. We couldn't get live people out of America at that time. He'll be literally disappointed. ये क्या किया तुमने लोगों ने मेरे साथ? ये मैंने बेटे पाले. एक काम नहीं कर सके. I mean, we couldn't for the 3 days. We didn't bury him for 3 days. And flight check कर रहे हैं. We're checking up everything. कोई चीज मिल जाए. No, nothing's gonna go out of America, buddy. Nothing. Especially a coffin. Live people are not gonna go out. You sending a coffin out? No, it's not gonna happen. And Muadh Bin Jabal is holding his hand. Mat chode, don't let go of my hand. And Prophet ﷺ is also not letting go of his hand. You know, both of them are like aware that this is the last time he's holding the Prophet ﷺ's hand. And Prophet ﷺ is keep telling him that it doesn't matter, Maz, where you're going or where you're going to live or how far you are. As long as you are near to Islam, you're with me. That's what I'm going to tell to all overseas Muslims.
I wanted to ask a simple question that is quite simple, but it's maybe complicated in the nature. As a layman, we are living in Europe since 15 years or 18 years. So how, as a layman, how we can contribute and how we can change the identity while living in that environment? I mean,
Change what?
How we can change ourselves, the identity that you are talking about most of the time. That
Well, good question. It's a simple question.
Yes, simple
something
question.
That are you done with that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, as a layman, because for me to start from somewhere, from my home, from my family, or from somewhere, from reading some books or doing something that can help me to come out of this fiasco thinking that we have got inherited from our parents, maybe, or the mullahs or the Maulvi Sahab or whatever. So we are actually stuck in that, and we don't find the way out, that how we can get improved, how we can change our identity to the destination that is actual destination in some way. Thank you.
Well, good question. There are some things that Scandinavia is going to offer you, which Pakistan, India is not. Okay, and that's the exposure towards how to look into the very concept of knowledge, the philosophy of knowledge, the epistemology of things. You don't get it here in Desistan. So use it to your advantage. Now, the only problem that Muslims in Europe and America are going to go through, which primarily are those people who are immigrants themselves, not their kids, but themselves. So I was not an immigrant myself. My father was. So, I couldn't really understand the real problem that my father was suffering from until I grew into it. I became old enough to know different cultures, Pakistan and North America. And it became very evident that, my father was going through a lot more problems of his own identity than I were. And I am, or I am ever going to be going through. Because he had to accept both at the same time, live in America. He died in America. And I remember last days, I'm literally the last day, my father was like, Mujhe Lahore mein dafnana hai. Mujhe Lahore mein dafnana hai. I need to be buried in Lahore. It was 9/11 going on. We couldn't get live people out of America at that time. So we tried our best. We couldn't. So, of course, you cannot just wait for 3 months. So, and we did get a flight after 3 months. This was the kind of problem we were going through. Literally, November 5th, he died. You know what I'm saying? Right after September 11th, November 5th, he died. So we were stuck. We were in Chicago Hope. We were in Chicago, and we didn't know what to do. So we had to bury him there in a Muslim graveyard. But that's all he was telling me. मैंने यहाँ पे नहीं दफन होना, मैंने यहाँ दफन नहीं होना. And nobody wants to talk about this with your own father, because we were motivating that he's not going to die, right? I'm just saying he was going through that transit. That this is not my place. I'm a Muslim. I go, mujhe Lahore leke jao, Lahore. Mujhe make sure I want to be in Lahore. And sometimes Pakistan, sometimes Lahore. He was. And I was 20. I was 19, 20. And I was thinking, why is this a problem for him? Why is not dying a problem for him? Why is being buried in America a problem for him? This was a very big, opening of how to look at identity, or a crisis of identity, the depression of a person whose identity is the suffocation, the stifling of a man who's not in his own place. He thinks of himself as an alien. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's not even worried about dying. He's worried about being buried. Imagine the pressure on us three brothers at that time, because we knew that's not what our father wanted. He wanted to be buried in Lahore. And we're burying him in, Chicago, literally? And no one's talking about it. Nobody talks about this, but we're all thinking it. And we're just thinking, "Ki kya kare ab?" Like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, being disappointed that if my father knew, he'll be literally disappointed. "Ye kya kiya tumne logon ne mere sath? Ye maine bete pale. Ye kaam nahi kar sakte." I mean, we couldn't. You have no idea. For the 3 days, we didn't bury him for 3 days. Because the funeral thing was going on. The third day morning, actually, we buried him in Chicago. And flight check kar rahe hain, we're checking up everything. Koi cheez mil jaye. No, nothing's going to go out of America, buddy. Nothing. Especially a coffin. Live people are not going to go out. You sending a coffin out? No, it's not going to happen. So it's a realization that I know Muslims inside non-Muslim cultures go through that transit. Okay, what is that transit? The transit is simple. That we are culturally defined into a certain set of rules that I am this man who does certain things, and that's exactly what defines me as a man. Somehow we start attributing that to Islam, because that culture has a lot of Islam in there, but it's not Islam. No culture is Islam. You know what I'm saying? Being buried anywhere. It is Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas is buried in China. You know what I'm saying? Or his mamu. I keep forgetting. Or both. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the worst place to be buried into. I mean, there is literally no Islam at the time, and Sahabas are moving out, right? So it doesn't really matter, does it? What matters is, it doesn't matter where you're living. What matters is how you're defining the very core of you, who you are. And unless you are successful in that, doesn't really matter how rich or poor you're going to die or live. You're going to echo that depression into your kids. Most parents are doing that in America, and everybody knows. Every kid knows about this. Somehow, their father is always pissed off at them. No matter what I'm going to do, my daddy's going to be like, you know what? I have to Pakistan wapas jana hai. Pakistan wapas jana hai. It's like, because of me, just the way you look at me, oh yeah, kyunki baal katwa ke aaye. I just got a haircut, Pakistan wapas jana hai. I wore a new pair of jeans, Pakistan wapas jana hai. His identity is being, crushed. And all of a sudden, he's attributing Islam into it. And that's where my problem is with the culture. You know what? Every bado ke liye khada hona hai. Culture hai. Oh, Islam to na dale isme. This is absolutely absurd. And we need to grow out of this and it'll relax the hell out of us. I swear to you. I tried it on myself. It relaxes you because Islam gives you the actual liberty and freedom to spread all of your wings and relax any and everything that you're doing. Well, most of what you're doing is not even attributed as an identity of any human being, let alone a Muslim. A Muslim is not what he wears or the way or where he was born. As Muadh Bin Jabal, when he's being sent to Yemen, he knew Prophet ﷺ is sending him. He's walking with Muadh Bin Jabal. Prophet ﷺ is sending him to Yemen. And Prophet ﷺ is telling him, not in his very words, because it's not Muslim to tell when anyone's going to die. But Muadh Bin Jabal is crying, Prophet ﷺ is crying. Both of them knew that this is the last time they're meeting. And Muadh Bin Jabal is like, I don't want to go, because he knew this is the last time I'm seeing the Prophet ﷺ. And he, ﷺ, is the one who's sending me to Yemen. I mean, this is the last time. And see what the Prophet ﷺ tells him, Imagine kis level pe, how he's actually helping us understand that even if you're in Stockholm or even if you're in Madagascar, even if you're in Auckland or you're in Makkah, it doesn't really matter. Your identity is not dependent on where you are and where you're going to live or where you're going to die. It matters on the key attributes that you're going to live your life upon rather than where you're going to practice them. And he literally, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, literally tells it to Muadh bin Jabal that it doesn't matter whether you're far from me or you're close. And Muadh bin Jabal is holding his hand. Don't let go of my hand. And Prophet ﷺ is also not letting go of his hand. You know, both of them are like aware that this is the last time he's holding the Prophet ﷺ's hand. And Prophet ﷺ is keep telling him that it doesn't matter, Muadh, where you're going or where you're going to live or how far you are. As long as you are nearer to Islam, you're with me. That's what I'm going to tell to all overseas Muslims. That when we understand that, you know what, my father was keep telling me, Lahore mein maine dafan hona hai, Lahore mujhe leke jana hai. And I'm like, this is a big deal of where we're born and where we're raised, and the kind of, flavor of the air that I was, raised into in Karachi or, wherever, or Delhi or Dhaka or wherever, we think this is our identity. And these old folks have just written books and charters on this, that this is your identity. This man, Muadh bin Jabal radiallahu anhu, you know what his kunya, his laqab was? You know what people used to call Muadh bin Jabal? Imagine look it up. I'm not going to tell you. Look it up and you'll find out that this is what the Arabs used to call Muadh bin Jabal. This is the rank of Muadh bin Jabal, in the eyes of the Prophet. And he's the one who's sent away from the Prophet. Feel this whole story I'm telling you. People in Sweden and Finland, feel it in Norway and Denmark, feel it in Canada and Irvine. That's the farthest I can think of. After that, it's the Pacific, right? Feel it in Japan. You're the farthest. Feel it in Auckland and in Chile. You need to see, and I know our family in Alaska right now. I mean, I literally grew up with them. Feel it in Anchorage. You're the farthest, and you could still be the best case study for Muslim identity. You can still be. This is the story of Muadh bin Jabal. You can be the best case study, best example of what Muslim identity is. If you know means knowledge, and you have attributes, and you have the practice, the activism of what a Muslim is supposed to do wherever he is. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to continue the story of Muadh bin Jabal because that's going to tangent things out. Because he's the one who came out and he says, I'm not going to report to Abu Bakr Siddiq. And Abu Bakr Siddiq said, why you not report to me? He said, because I report to Allah alone. And Abu Bakr Siddiq says, I report to the same God, man. He's the one who made me in charge of you. So you're going to report to me? And he said, no. If you don't believe that I report to Allah Azza wa Jal, then I'm not the right man for the job. And if you believe that I report to Allah Azza wa Jal, then you're not supposed to ask for any report from me. I mean, look at the concepts of this man. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. I mean, it's like, I'm not going to go into details, totally different set of psychology, the angle of psychology that we'll cover some other day, inshallah. What I'm saying that Sweden has to offer a lot of things in terms of your knowledge, your aperture, your exposure, which you'll see. I mean, you can read the Muslim thought from outside so clearly. You can see the kind of errors they're making. You can only see that when you're outside the picture, right? Because when you're inside the picture, you get involved with this. You get biased about this, inside it and on it. You're biased within the sphere, about the sphere, because of the sphere. But when you come out of the sphere, you can see the whole sphere. Muslims in Pakistan or India can't even scale themselves of what kind of problem they're suffering because they're inside the problem. Sometimes they are the problem. But once you come outside the problem, you can see, from all angles what the problem is, and then you can relate to it. And that's what European philosophy can help you with. You don't have to adhere to it. You just have to learn it so that in retrospect, you can see, you know what, same kind of problems have happened to Muslims. And I'm telling you this right now, the same case study, with the Pope and what the Vatican was, well, not now, what the church was doing in Europe before Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, the original Martin Luther King in Europe, what was he crying about? He was crying about his own Maulvis. What the hell are you guys up to? Why are you trying to do this? Because of the book? This is not what the book is saying. I'm not saying, this is what we should do. What I'm saying is we can see that story and what happened and see that this might just happen to Muslims as well. Because you can only see it once you're outside the problem, and you'll find out that, you know what, I'll give you an example. In Toronto, I was sitting with, and I spent a lot of time with the Maliki school of thought and the teachers and students. And I'm really fascinated by them. The kind of arguments that Maliki school gives, I still do not know the answers to those arguments. And in my alone time, I'll tell you a secret. I am a Maliki when I'm alone. Because I can't convince myself out of the lack of my capacity to answer the arguments of Imam Malik and their students. They have a way stronger argument of the way life is supposed to be lived than the Hanabala that taught me, or the Shafi'is that taught me. And I am way more pro Hanabala, but since there's not much of a difference, so I just keep shifting. But once I started reading the Malikis, then I was like, oh my God, now I understand the value or the lack of value in the Shafi'in teachers or the Hanabalas. I had to go outside the problem to see, or outside the Safir, to see the Safir, the good and the bad that the Safir had to offer. The Malikis had that gift to give me. And once I came to Pakistan, I did not know any Hanafi. Well, I knew a lot of Pakistanis. They didn't even know they were Hanafis. I knew that they were Hanafis, but they were not teaching Hanafiya. So when I came into Pakistan, I was like, it's a conundrum, right? Because I know what the Malikis is saying. I'm still suffering from the lack of the ability to answer the arguments of the Malikiyas. And all of a sudden, I'm in the Hanafiyas, and I'm like, you don't even know, my problems. You have to know my problems to solve my problems. Now, that's an identity crisis. So, but I'm just giving an example here. So in Sweden, that there's so much your kids can gain because of the fact that there's so many Arabian immigrants inside Sweden. You can get that exposure for your kids and yourselves. Learn. You can read the Quran in a different angle, which you can never, ever do in Pakistan. Literally never. I mean, I have tried for years and years, couldn't find that angle of the Quran, which the Arabians teach to their kids, literally. You don't have to be a scholar to know what I'm talking about. And in Sweden, you can do that. You know what I'm saying? And not just the Quran and the Sirah and Hadith, but imagine, I'll give you a case study. In Pakistan, there's no book. You'll literally have to find or order it from the outside of Shamail. The Shamail of the Prophet. You cannot, there is no concept. And everywhere else in the world, every child knows about this. They don't have to be a Muslim world country. And once you are outside, or let's just say Sweden is actually mainstream. Sweden is big, right, in terms of its exposure. So you can actually get a lot more access to knowledge of all kinds. So you have an edge. And that's what I'm saying, Muslim identity through the story of Muadh Bin Jabal. I'm telling you, you might just be the best thing. This immigration, this diaspora of the Muslims might just be the best thing if you can harness it properly for the Muslim identity inside the Muslim land. Pakistan is, by the way, has a lot more exposure than other countries like Indonesia or even as African countries, which are Muslims. Pakistan is very well exposed because of the fact that we were directly the slaves of Victoria, right? So we have a lot more exposure to English, and we can actually translate a lot of things or understand a lot of things which the African Muslims can't or other countries can't. So we are a lot more, out there. So still, I know that the handicap that a Muslim in Pakistan has, and a Swedish or Finnish or a Scandinavian Muslim child has a little bit of an edge. English child has a lot more to get or gain if he's trained into it, right? But if we start getting depressed, oh my God, I'm not a Muslim anymore because I'm in England, or my identity is only to be practiced in Islamabad, and then you don't even know what that identity is. Okay, you could have had the best Muslim identity because of the kind of tools England has to offer, Sweden, Scandinavia has to offer for that age in your child's life. And if he had received that, if he had that perspective, he's going to gain all of it. If he doesn't have that perspective, he's not going to gain any of it, even if it's going to be right there in front of him. And that's what I keep telling the overseas, especially the English countries, that you guys are in a lot better position as parents. You have both, the best of both the worlds. Utilize it. If you're not going to utilize it, then you have the worst possible case study, because scenario, because worst case scenario, because then your child is going to be in the middle of the biggest problem the planet has to offer, which is the corruption of philosophy, which is coming directly from the West. I'm telling you this right now. I'm not about this, I'm not biased against or for anybody, but the way they're actually trying to advance the left wing is inevitably, with its own great intent, even if I give it the benefit of the doubt, the way they're actually trying to pollute the philosophy of the way life is supposed to be looked at, it is such an amazing glimmer, and it is so appealing to a postmodernistic mind, but it has absolute, like, it is the exact opposite of what Islam is. I mean, they're literally hunting down the values and the concepts of the Quran, hunting them down. And I am not going to be a fool, say, you know what, Lord, they're good people, they just don't know any better. No, are you kidding me? One after the other. It's like somebody opened the Quran or the Bible and said, you know what, I'm going to do chapter 1 in 2020. We're going to hit we're going to hit Genesis in 2020, and then we're going to move to Ezekiel 2024. That's how they're actually planning it. I'm not saying they're against the Quran. I'm just saying their philosophy that church represents, all of a sudden, because, the Bible Belt is not the most favorite part of America for most of the Americans, right? So they're trying to do whatever they can. And in turn, of course, those kind of values are punctured and flattened for our Muslim kids as well. And that's why most Muslim parents who are first generation immigrants are frustrated out of their skin, because they move right into the heart of this movement that the West is going through. And it's not America. I'm telling you, America is 2 steps behind. Canada is way ahead of this game. The way they're progressing into this, new psychology of how to redefine the word values and the word rights and the word good in general. Somehow, I don't know who's training Trudeau, but my God, I have never seen a faster movement away from Islam than what Justin Trudeau is somehow, up to, because of the way he's actually shooting down the core of what Bible represents, or the Quran represents. So I'm just giving you both sides of the picture in detail, so that you understand how I look at things and how your kids are going to be affected, in my opinion. And I have not lived in England, but once you see the whole spectrum of what England has to offer, you got to know that it's not, I'm just giving you the good side through understanding what good West has to offer. But you need to understand, if it's not the best case scenario, then the worst case scenario is literally the worst case scenario. Then you'll be literally envying Muslims who are literally, in current definitions, very backward, and they're stuck in some kind of a well. They're never going to come out of it. You'll be envying their kids because they won't have that kind of problems our kids are going to have in the West, because the West, the other side of the West, is literally as evil as it gets. Okay, so I understand. I hope I've gone enough in detail.